Viewers, a one-off cricket test match between Afghanistan and New Zealand that is being held in India has resulted in embarrassment all round so far. The match is being hosted in Greater Noida's Vijay Singh Pathak Stadium and was to begin on Monday. However, not a single ball has been delivered over the past 3 days, over the past 3 days of this 5-day test. And in fact, monsoon rains have left the outfield damp, and that's where all the trouble began. By all accounts, facilities at the stadium are substandard. Groundsmen seem to be grossly underprepared and under-equipped. To make matters worse, photos of the catering staff at the stadium washing utensils in a washroom next to urinals have gone viral. Times Now brings you a report from the stadium.
We are here at the stadium in Greater Noida where the match between Afghanistan and New Zealand is being held, but unfortunately not a single ball has been bowled in the last 3 days. Play has been called off. There was rain on day one, because of which first the toss was delayed, then the match was called off on day one. Same thing happened on day two, even though there wasn't any rain particularly on day two, and day three as well. First the toss was delayed and then the match was called off. Now a lot is being talked about as far as this match is concerned. This is the stadium right behind me. You can see Afghanistan versus New Zealand only test September 2024. This is a ground that was chosen by the Afghanistan Cricket Board officials. As far as the BCCI is concerned, remember, it is one of the richest cricket boards in the world. It had offered them 3 venues, which was of course Bangalore, Bengaluru, there was Kanpur, the Green Park Stadium, and also this particular stadium, Greater Noida. So it was chosen by the Afghanistan Cricket Board to hold matches over here. In fact, in a press statement while speaking to the reporters, Afghanistan Cricket Board officials also said that they chose Greater Noida because they felt that it was easy connectivity and it would be logistically as well easy for ACB, and better connectivity with Kabul as well.
Remember, the match was supposed to start on Monday, but play for the day was called off by afternoon. Umpires cited concerns over players' safety due to the wet outfield. The same story repeated on day 2 after an overnight downpour. Groundsmen were seen even using electrical table fans in a bid to dry the pitch and the waterlogged areas of the ground. The affected portions were also dug up and filled with dry soil and grass. However, umpires called off the day's play after multiple failed inspections. With heavy rains last night in Greater Noida area, day 3 of the match was no different, with the play called off for the 3rd consecutive day. Now, it's important to note that this stadium is maintained by the Greater Noida Industrial Development Authority. Owing to the volatile political situation in Afghanistan, the BCCI offered 3 venues to the Afghanistan board, and these were the areas that were offered. That is, of course, Bengaluru, Kanpur and Greater Noida. Afghanistan board chose Greater Noida, citing logistical ease. Let's look at some of the issues and questions that need answering that come out of this entire episode. The first, of course, is what really has transpired is there's been a wet outfield over there that's been widely reported, because of which the match couldn't take place for over 3 days. That's, of course, as far as the pictures over there, you can see how fans were being used, the grass being removed, and in fact, dry soil being put in there. No proper drainage systems also quite clearly evident over there. Ground staff digging the damp areas have also been seen. They try to fill it up with dry soil and grass in these affected portions of the pitch, but none of that really worked on ground as far as this particular stadium is concerned. Questions that emerge: why were the staff underprepared to counter a wet outfield? That's the most basic question that one would expect out of an international cricket match. Why modern equipment was not used at this particular venue is another question that arises. Why no proper drainage systems at the stadium were put in place? That's a most basic question. And why were staff unprepared to face emergencies when they know that an international cricket match is going to take place over there? These are some of the unanswered questions that we are in fact looking at this point of time. And let's also in fact take you across to one of the persons that we've spoken to from the Afghanistan Cricket Board, an official, about the washout so far and whether there are any misgivings about what's happened this far. Listen in.
Only issue at the moment is, we have been facing regularly regular rains here, and which is quite heavy. Well, I would say, the ground staff were trying their level best, and they were thinking this can be, an option where it does work in some point in some areas, and this is something which they're the experts. And the selection of the stadium, depends on many factors. So when it comes to this stadium, I've mentioned in one of my interviews, I would say that logistically this was one of the feasible options for us, coming from Kabul and then driving for 2 hours and then having a tie-up with one of the best hotel chains here within Greater Noida, and so is BCCI. They've never stopped their help and support when it comes to managing the event.
Karishma is joining us live now. Karishma, this is absolutely bizarre what we've seen take place in Greater Noida. Never have we seen an international match take place such as this. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a match between two countries, and even basic facilities are not present in this particular stadium. What explains this massive goof-up that appears to have taken place?
Well, yes, absolutely, Madhav. It is shambolic the way the stadium is functioning. The fact that there is no drainage system in the stadium. We have seen those pictures of the entire field being dug up, grass patches being put on the field because they were wet, and the match they were hoping could take place. We have pictures of electrical fans being used to dry the stadium. This is not the modern technology that everyone talks about that is available at every stadium in India, which is of course BCCI equipped and BCCI affiliated. In fact, ACB was offered help by the Uttar Pradesh Cricket Association as well. ACB wanted Lucknow Ekana Stadium as their stadium, but that wasn't possible because they had their internal T20 league going on. They were offered Green Park, but the ACB in the past also had played in the same stadium. In fact, they've played 11 matches in this stadium. So for ACB to say that we weren't sure of how they would work around rains is something which is very, very strange, because for a team who considers Greater Noida as their home stadium, has played there for 3 years before moving to Dehradun, should very well know inside and out how good or bad the system in the stadium is, because at the end of the day, this is Afghanistan Cricket Board's home match, and this is going to be a match which is going to be very, very embarrassing for Afghanistan Cricket Board. Because remember, bilateral series between any two countries are very, very difficult in this time and age when you have so many ICC tournaments to play for. So obviously New Zealand is also not going to take this lightly. The referee Javagal Srinath is of course going to submit a report to ICC as well. So this is going to get very, very difficult for the Afghanistan Cricket Board to come back from.
All right, let's see how the Afghanistan Cricket Board comes back from this. Thanks so much for joining us, Karishma. Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guest. Joining us with us is Bimal Soni, former manager of the Indian cricket team. Nikhil Sharma is a sports commentator and author. Also with us is Chandrasekhar Luthra, senior sports journalist. Let me start first and foremost with you. Bimal Soni, one would expect for an international match where there are two major cricket playing nations, playing a match, the facilities would be in order. Who's to blame? Is it the cricket board of the respective countries? Is it the Indian Cricket Board or the State Cricket Board, which has, perhaps played a role in deciding this particular stadium? Or is it the facilities and the people in charge of the maintenance of this particular stadium?
Well, I think Afghan Cricket Board took up the decision of putting the match there. And I don't think so. We've got so many good grounds in the country. And Kanpur had offered, Bangalore had offered, everybody had offered. And still to select Greater Noida with no facilities for rains, for this weather and proper ground staff. So I think this is a goof up done by Afghan Cricket Board, and New Zealand accepted it, not the BCCI, because BCCI is not the host. But at the same time, they could have sought the help. UP Cricket Board should have known that a test match with New Zealand and Afghanistan is very dicey in this heavy rainfall weather, and I think this is a goof up done by the administrators and not by the team which has come on tour. So this should not have happened, and had they taken support of the board, we could have organized this match anywhere. Even in Delhi, you have many grounds where this match could have been organized.
Absolutely. In fact, why not in the national capital itself, many would ask. But let me take that question across to Chandrasekhar Luthra. Chandrasekhar Luthra, is it really that simple? Because you have Mr. Bimal Soni, who's of the view that you can't blame it on BCCI. Ultimately, they're not part of the organizing of this match. Yes, it's happening in India. And yes, other pitches such as Kanpur and Bengaluru were offered. And therefore, it's completely on the Afghanistan Cricket Board which took the final call. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with Mr. Soni that BCCI has nothing to do with the organization of the match. But again, BCCI has to do everything. Who passed this test center? First of all, when this test center was passed, it was to be passed on the basis of what all facilities they are offering to the teams. You have to have a super soccer. You have to have the entire, cricket ground covers before being called as test center. So here, a goof up was also happened in term when we talk about from the BCCI angle. BCCI management, BCCI must have. I don't know who passed this, who was in the committee, but obviously the committee which made this a test center has obviously not counted whether there was a super soccer, whether there were all other facilities which a test center has to have. And second thing, BCCI also has to blame their own vice president, Mr. Rajiv Shukla, who was batting for this test center. He was always been there with the Afghan teams, with the Greater Noida establishment, whosoever was controlling this, to make it, he was hell-bent to make it a test center. The point is BCCI has its own, middleman, I would call, who are also political middleman, also the cricket middleman. In cricket, they are called cricket fixers also, in terms of not fixing the game, but fixing the test centers. So you have to blame them also. And last, yes, BCCI was kind enough to offer them 3 centers. They chose on Greater Noida. This Afghan Cricket Association has to answer on that.
Okay,
And
Afghan
they
Cricket
have to
Association
make
has to answer, but yes, as Chandrasekhar Luthra's question arises, Nikhil Sharma, end of the day, can we look at a situation where the BCCI, the UP Cricket Association, can be completely absolved, given that Mr. Rajiv Shukla was amongst those who were seen with the Afghan Cricket Association officials, is what he says. Can completely hands be washed off?
Well, Madhav, it's a peculiar case. Firstly, nobody can absolutely be absolved out of this case. The stadium, I know it fairly well. Look, firstly, what Mr. Chandrasekhar is saying, you're ratifying a test venue. It's not that simple.
Yes.
It needs a certain minimum facilities for any venue to be ratified by the ICC, which means, if Afghanistan is accepted and New Zealand has accepted it, it must be on the BCCI to have gone and put in those paperwork for the venue to be ratified. Now, cricket grounds have a lot of varieties, and the test grounds are supposed to have a certain minimum infrastructure, a certain minimum surface where the drainage is the best around. So I think, in all of those aspects, I think the local organizing committee, whoever they are, or people who were involved, have been let down a little bit. It's also situational. Delhi hasn't seen this kind of rain in a long time. We would have sporadic rains, and then, there'd be 3-4 days of no rains at all. But these rains have been relentless. It's very, very tough, specifically if you've never had a test or even, a big profile match here, which I think also the finances would have suited Afghanistan. Somebody would have doled out that financial incentive of saying you don't have to pay much. I don't think there were enough people, enough facilities. See, if you don't have that kind of matches in a place, it doesn't make sense for you to have super stoppers. It doesn't make sense for you to have dedicated high quality groundsmen or pitch curators. And I think all of those things have been let down. People have taken easy decisions, and it's come back to bite all of them.
No, but then why hold the match there in the first place? If you're going to start washing your catering dishes in the washrooms or start using table fans to dry the pitch, you're making a mockery of yourself at the end of the day. And that's really the big question. Bimal Soni, question over there is this. Yes, there are different levels of ratification of different venues of cricket grounds, but all of this is public information. So those who actually either approved of it or sought for it should have known what kind of facilities were available there. It's quite entirely possible that this is not a ground on which a lot of international matches happen, but that's something that should have been thought of before actually playing the match there.
I entirely agree with you. There is a checklist when you have international matches, test matches. There's a checklist that what facilities are necessary on that ground. You can't have test matches and countries playing like they have done it in Noida. You're talking, I don't know whether Rajiv Shukla was involved or not, but he's been in cricket for so many years. He knows what was required for the ground. And even Afghan Cricket Board, before finalizing the venue, should have seen what are the facilities and what are the things now available for conduction of that match. So I would blame the officials. I would blame the people who have taken the decision to organize such a match. And this is not the fault of New Zealand. This is not the fault of, I would say the players. But if they wanted a match for better connectivity, better place like Delhi, as I said earlier, they could have got many other matches closer to Delhi, which would have had international standard, and we would not have suffered what is happening today. 3 days if a match is not being able to conduct, it's a error on part of the organizers. At the same time, don't forget, we have had very heavy rains in Delhi and around Delhi. So this was an unusual time also to have this kind of a test match. In India, we don't normally organize matches in the monsoon season. So for them to have taken this organization of this match at Noida in the monsoon season is again a blunder on part of the organizers or the board or ICC. So I don't know who's at fault. But
well, at the end of the day, the fact is that India's cricket board is the world's richest cricketing body, and at a situation like this, if you have these kind of facilities that are obviously going to create very embarrassing questions about how matches are organized here in India, with fans at the pitch, with these kind of washing of dishes, etc., it's bound to raise several serious questions. We'll have to leave it there. Chandrasekhar Luthra, I can see your hand going up. I'd like to thank you. We're completely out of time. Nikhil Sharma as well as Vimal Soni, thanks so much for joining us, and we certainly hope that these kind of embarrassing goof-ups do not happen in future matches as well. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll bring into a quick break.